Hi and welcome to another episode of the Silver Screen Show. As you can see, I'm all alone today, so we'll see how this goes. My name is Alenya and I will be talking about a few films today. Firstly, I'd like to bring you up to speed on a little bit of news we found out today. James Gunn has been dropped as director from Guardians of the Galaxy after already making the first two massive successes. He apparently will not be involved in the third after a bit of controversy around some of his old tweets. He's another victim of the 10-year-old tweet. And a couple of people have come out, including Dave Bautista, to defend him. But at the moment, it hasn't brought him back into the director's chair. So we'll keep an eye on this and see what happens. Personally, I mean, it's 9-10 years ago, so anything that you say can come and bite you again. But it seemed to be some jokes that were in very, very poor taste, and some people have taken offence to it, unfortunately. But there's nothing he can do about it now. He should have deleted them at the time. So the first film I'm going to be talking about is The Incredibles 2. So this is 14 years in the making. This is directed by Brad Bird, who was the writer and director for this one and the original. We've got our returning cast of Craig T. Nelson, Holly Hunter, Samuel L. Jackson, and we've got a brand new situation. We're literally coming straight out of the first movie after the whole syndrome scenario, and we've gone straight into this next one with Screenslaver is our new bad guy, and the family once again have to separate and then come back together and fight together and enlist a bit of help from some other supers as well. So I think this is a bit of a rehash of the originals, just with the roles reversed. So in the original one, we had Mr. Incredible was employed by Syndrome and was taken away from the family. And then in this one, Elastigirl is the one who is being enlisted to try and bring the supers back into the light and give a better name for them again. And now Mr. Incredible is being left at home with the kids. And obviously you can tell from the trailer, there's a lot of stuff that happens back at home with Mr. Incredible and his children. Not all for the best, but you go through all of these normally family issues that you have in the real world, but just with a superhero tint on it as well. So I think it's hilarious. It's brilliantly written again, and I love Edna Mode as well, always. She is normally, for me, the best part of the Incredibles movies. It feels like the characters lost a bit of the progression that they made in the first movie, though. I feel like they moved forward and they became a family unit at the end of the first movie and then lost that pretty much straight away in the second one. And the bad guy Screenslaver, I'm not going to go into too much detail, I don't want to give out any spoilers, but it was a little bit lacking. But at the end of the day, it is one hilarious movie and I absolutely loved it. When we were in the cinema last weekend, all the adults were laughing, the children were laughing, everyone was having a great time, and I think it's just a really good family film that you should definitely be going to see. Next, I'm going to talk about Skyscraper. So this is Dwayne Johnson's newest action flick, directed by Rawson Marshall Thurber, who did Dodgeball, We Are the Millers, and Central Intelligence. So just from looking at his history in directing, you can tell that this isn't going to be completely serious, and you can tell that from the trailer as well. We've also got Neve Campbell, who played Sydney in Scream, if you can remember that far back, and Chin Han, who was in The Dark Knight, and Roland Muller is one of the bad guys, and he was from Atomic Blonde. He played Bremovich, personal favourite movie of mine. What can I say about this, really? So Dwayne Johnson plays an amputee who is an ex-FBI, ex-Special Forces kind of character, you know, same. But he loses a leg and he starts his own security firm. And he gets hired by Chin Han, who gets him to look over his building, which is the Pearl. And it's a 240-story tower in Hong Kong. And it's got everything. It's got a little garden. Well, I say little. It's got a big garden with a big waterfall and water features. It's got shopping. It's got apartments. And it's got this really strange pearl at the top of the tower, which is really freaky and looks absolutely terrifying, but also really thrilling and exhilarating once you're up there as well. For 240 stories without a floor, that's pretty terrifying. And so Chin Han has got a bit of problem with some protection that he got out, and he's got a little flash drive that's got the information on some people. So these people want to get that flash drive off him before he gives it to anyone and outs all of these big bad, you know, gangster types in Hong Kong. So Roland Muller and other people come into the building and they decide that they're going to attack him, going through the thing that he loves the most, which is the tower. So they decide to set fire to it. But unfortunately, Dwayne Johnson's family is still in the tower. So he has to go in and he has to try and save them. And it is ridiculous. I'm sorry, I love Dwayne Johnson. And but it's just ridiculous. It is hilarious. It's very CGI heavy. It's very derivative of other action movies. I mean, you've probably heard a lot of people calling it sort of Die Hard 2018. It's very CGI heavy. It's very cliched. Some of the lines were cheesy and predictable and very cringy. I found myself kind of sinking back into my chair like, no, don't say it, don't. Oh, no, you said it. Overall, it's quite predictable, but it is a lot of fun. And there are some bits that are really edge of your seat action. It's really thrilling. And the whole time, you don't really notice that, you know, he's an amputee until something happens. And then you're like, oh yeah, he's got a fake leg. And there's a lot of talk at the moment about the controversy behind that as well. So some people saying, you know, it should have been played by an amputee, because there are disabled actors out there who can play these disabled or even able-bodied characters. And there's sort of two schools of thought on this at the moment. Some people saying, you know, even though he's a disabled character, he still makes him really badass and really cool. But then other people saying, yes, that's great, but he still should be played by a disabled person. And judging from the box office for this film at the moment, I think it's only been out for just over a week, but it hasn't really like broken any records or anything. So I think if you'd have put an unknown actor in Dwayne Johnson's role, it wouldn't have survived. So I think it's good that Dwayne Johnson has done it. Obviously, I can't say anything. I'm not an amputee myself. But I think that he's putting it out there, and there was a lot of videos before the film came out of him interviewing or meeting amputees and getting their personal opinion on it. So it's not like he's gone into this film blind. He's done a bit of research as well. And I think it just opens up a little bit more for characters in the future. So they don't have to just be, you know, able-bodied ex-military. They can be ex-military with a prosthetic leg. So moving past that and going back to the actual movie, I loved it. It's terrible, but I like a good movie that's a bit bad as well. So I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of laughs. I was there with my friend Zoe, and we were both in stitches by the end of it. And it's just Dwayne Johnson doing what he normally does, not really taking himself too seriously, which works for him and it works for me. So, So Bad It's Good is definitely my short review for Skyscraper. And lastly, I just want to bring to attention a couple of movies that I've been watching on Netflix recently. I'm sure most people, if you're watching, have got a Netflix account. And Netflix churns out a lot and it's difficult to keep up with. But a couple of films, this is very, very different to what the Skyscraper and The Incredibles. This is going more of the rom-com road, which I don't normally go down, but they looked quite interesting. First of all is Set It Up, which is about two personal assistants who decide that their lives are a misery because they have to stay up late and stay at work all hours of the night for their bosses. So they decide to set up their bosses, which are Taye Diggs and Lucy Liu. And obviously, hilarity ensues and things mess up. and obviously they start falling for each other as well. But it's a really nice story, and everyone acts really well in it. There wasn't anyone like stand out, wow, they were incredible, because it's, at the end of the day, it's a basic rom-com. And but no one's horrible in it, and the story, it's not overly complicated, but it's also not overly simplified either. So, and it's just got a really nice pace to it, and there's happy bits, there's sad bits, there's funny bits, and it's just kind of all-round nice film. It's quite nice if you're just sitting in and on a Saturday night, like tonight, or if you don't want to go to the cinema, it's quite nice to watch. And the other one was Kissing Booth. This is a little bit younger. It's more teenage romance, but it's still a nice story. So the main girl in it, she has a best friend who has a really attractive older brother, and her best friend says, you know, family is off limits. You are not to go near him at all. But obviously, she does. And they start this secret relationship, and which then blows up in their faces, and people get really angry, and people get upset, and people get their hearts broken, and it's a bit of a roller coaster of emotion. But again, it's a really nice film to watch. There's a really nice ending. The only thing that I found really weird about it was that the guy is about 2 foot taller than the girl. And when they're like doing kissing scenes and stuff, they're like this. So it's really awkward when they start doing these scenes. And I just kind of had to get up and walk away and be like, wow, okay, no, I'm going to come back to this in a minute. But other than that, I thought it was really nicely acted out, and everyone seemed quite mature in it, even though, you know, they're playing kids. So yeah, if you find yourself with nothing to do, then definitely log on to Netflix and check out Kissing Booth and set it up. And just to round it off, I would definitely spend some time going to see Incredibles 2. If you like your really cheesy, just ridiculous action movies, then you should definitely check out Skyscraper. If you're a fan of Dwayne Johnson, go check out Skyscraper. But definitely Incredibles 2. And I think that is it for this evening, and I will catch you again next time. Good night.
Minutes.
Huh?
13 minutes. Not
13.